Good Friday afternoon, and welcome to an online streamed only abbreviated edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you. We are not on the air today on the Sports Voice of Kansas due to the doubleheader for K-State women's basketball and men's basketball against Wisconsin and Cal, respectively. But it is a Red Friday. We're getting ready for a Chiefs matchup this weekend, so we wanted to make sure we got you our weekly Chiefs keys to the game, big Chief picks, and a prediction for Chiefs versus Jaguars coming up on Sunday, which, of course, you'll be able to hear on our regular Sports Talk home, 580 WIBW. So, Dan, without further ado, let's jump right into our picks for this week's contest. Chiefs are favored by 9.5 at home. 50.5 is the spread, or the total, excuse me. And here's my number one key for the game and why I think this game is going to end up going under that overall total. I like the Chiefs team total in this game, but my number one key, and maybe I'm stealing some thunder here because I think during the week we both sort of talked about how this was going to be the biggest part of the game for the Chiefs defense. Tackle Travis Etienne. Last week, the key was tackle Derrick Henry. Do not allow him to go off for huge gains. Don't allow the chunk play over and over and over again. Well, the Chiefs did a tremendous job of that. They gave up the 150-plus yard run, another one that was 20-plus. Other than that, Henry was stopped to just about 2.3 yards per attempt on his other 15 carries for the game. Now, the important thing to remember is that Etienne is a much different runner than Derrick Henry is. Derrick Henry is grab the ball, put your head down right through the tackles, and then just run you over like the little tractor he is, Tractor Cito. Travis Etienne, shiftier in space. You can use him more in the passing game, and I would assume the Jaguars will try to do that a bit, given the Chiefs' defense recent history of not being especially good defending pass-catching running backs. So I would think they'll try to use him that way. He can get outside a little bit more. He is still effective between the tackles. He's having a tremendous start to the season. Well, it's not even a start. We're halfway through the NFL season at this point. So that's the number one thing for me. If you can slow down Etienne, and again, just like last week, not even to the point where you're saying, hey, he's going to be held to 20 carries for 75 yards in the game. No, but if you can give up 110 total yards from scrimmage, but instead of 7 or 8 yards a touch, he's around 4 yards or less per touch. This is going to be, I think, a fairly easy game for the Chiefs defense because the Jaguars passing game, little concerning if I'd be a Jags fan right now, because I don't really know what Trevor Lawrence is at this point. Their receivers are okay, but there's certainly nothing that should scare the Jalen Watsons, L'Jarius Sneed, and companies of the world. So if you take down Travis Etienne, you stop him from having a massive game like he's had a couple of times so far this season, I think the Chiefs defense should be just fine.
Yeah, my first key is kind of a more micro version, a bit of a smaller version of what you talked about, and it goes to first down defense. I think that was so critical for the Chiefs against the Titans. They got better on first down as the game went on and got, to, as they say, that Titans defense off schedule, got them behind the sticks, got them in second and long and third and long, and the Chiefs love to play defense on second, third, and long because that gives them an opportunity to get after the quarterback, and it gives Steve Spagnuolo a chance to be creative with some of his blitz packages. And I think that Trevor Lawrence has shown still a chance that he can be rattled by pressure coming from different places. He hasn't quite mastered the art of beating the blitz just yet. So forcing the Jaguars into those third and long situations is going to be critical. And how do you do that? You play well on first down. Chiefs were really good on first down in the second half and completely shut the Titans' water off on Sunday night. I think they need to do that again. It will be a different kind of challenge, as you pointed out. The running game for Jacksonville, Travis Etienne, different kind of player than Derrick Henry. But the objective is the same. Keep them from popping big first down gains, make it harder for them to sustain drives, and get the Chiefs offense back out on the field. That is obviously the better half of this Chiefs team. And the more they're on the field, the better their chances are of breaking through and winning this game.
Key number two for me, and speaking of having that offense on the field, this feels like the sort of game when you can bury a team early on. I would love to see this Chiefs team be as aggressive as possible throwing the ball in the first half. We went over it on 580 Sports Talk on Thursday. This Jacksonville secondary is gross. I mean, there's just not talent there. They've been fairly banged up as well. Their pass rush is okay, but if the Chiefs offensive line plays like it has over the last few games, as opposed to maybe those first few games of the season, I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to get roughed up too badly in this game. And if he's got a chance to pick apart a secondary that the nicest thing you can say about it is their safeties are in the neighborhood of mediocre. Like that's the nicest thing you could say. I said it on Thursday's show. I've never heard of Chris Claybrooks before. And apparently he is a featured cornerback for this Jacksonville defense. Okay. I'm really not worried about the Chiefs being able to move the ball, especially through the air. So take the chances early in the game. Go for Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Get him involved early on in the contest on some of the vertical stuff he's so good at. Use Travis Kelce more as a vertical threat. Get the ball to Juju Smith-Schuster in space. Let him work. Don't know if McCole Hardman is going to go. The injury status is a little bit concerning. You don't need him to find success in this game. But hey, maybe this is more of a contest where you can use him as a true receiver as opposed to the offensive weapon role he's filled these last few weeks. Send him deep on a few different routes against this Jaguar secondary. Then you can essentially use the second half, or at least late third quarter into the fourth quarter, if you get out to that early lead, use it as a testing ground for this running game a little bit. We talked about the struggles this running game had against Tennessee. I believe it was 13 carries for 14 yards for the running backs and fullbacks last week against Tennessee. That's not going to cut it. You need to be able to move the ball on the ground in the postseason, late in the regular season, when the games mean more, to be able to salt games away, to be able to put games on ice, whatever phrase you want to end up using. Get out early against Jacksonville. You're going to put them in a spot where you really can't run the ball nearly as much with Travis Etienne. You're going to force Trevor Lawrence to be throwing the ball all over the place, which the highs are he's got tons of arm talent. You can see why he's such a highly regarded young quarterback. You can also see why some people are already using the bust moniker because he makes some absolutely god-awful decisions. So put him in a space where he is maybe going to make some of those bad decisions. Offense, put up a few points early on in the game, salt the game away late with the run. So essentially for me, I'm saying pass to set up the run in the sense that you can get out to an early lead and then put yourself in a spot where, hey, let's figure out what's going to work for Jerick McKinnon, what's going to work for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Isaiah Pacheco, where they can run for more than 1 yard per attempt in some more important games this season. So go ballistic early, use that Jags defense as something of a training ground in the second half.
That's an interesting way to put it. And I do think one of those three running backs is going to be a factor on Sunday. Your best guess as to who that's going to be is as good as mine. But I have a feeling that there will be a running back that plays a vital role in the Chiefs offense on Sunday in some form or fashion, even if it's not having a 100-yard game on the ground or anything, but helps him in the screen game. The thing I want to see, and my second key to Sunday's game, is a bounce-back game for the offensive line. The Chiefs are really good when Patrick Mahomes gets the ball out quick. And we know that Mahomes, when he gets the ball out in under 2.5 seconds, that's when the Chiefs offense can be really lethal. And I think other teams know that too. And other teams, I think, are sensing that they have a chance if they can stop the quick stuff to maybe have their pass rush make an impact. That's what happened for the Titans, I think, especially in the second half of Sunday night's game, where as their pass rush really got revved up, they were doing a good job with some press man stuff and really throwing Mahomes off of that early read. I expect Jacksonville to be that aggressive in the back seven to try and maybe create some turnovers and give themselves a chance to win this game. They'll be keyed up. They know it's a big challenge. They've had some success at times this year. So I think they're going to be aggressive and try and get up tight and take away those really quick throws that Mahomes and the Chiefs offense like to run to Travis Kelce or Juju Smith-Schuster. So I think some double moves and some deeper, longer developing routes are going to be there if this offensive line gives Mahomes time to sit in the pocket, read the play out, and deliver the ball down the field. But again, for those to be there, the offensive line has to play better. This is not as imposing a defensive front as the Chiefs saw last week against the Titans. They don't have a superstar pass rusher. They have some guys who can get after it a little bit, but they don't have a Jeffrey Simmons. Like they don't have a Bud Dupree. They don't have guys of that caliber. So I expect that the Chiefs' front five will hold up better against any four-man rush, and I think that will give the Chiefs time for some bigger plays in the passing game to develop without Mahomes having to get out on the run, which, of course, he can do that too.
We heard from Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs, on Thursday's 580 Sports Talk that, yeah, he's good at it. You don't necessarily want to rely on Patrick Mahomes to be your lead rusher. So if you get a couple opportunities where he can break off a 15-yard run and go straight out of bounds, not a problem for me. You just want to avoid him getting hit more than he has to. I also want to bring up real quick, you made a great point about how this Jaguars defense does not have the same kind of guys up front that the Titans do. And we talked about hoping that the running game gets going. Just looked it up, courtesy of rbsdm.com. That's Ben Baldwin, who writes for The Athletic. That's his website. It's got a bunch of advanced stats on it. Last week's opponent, the Titans, their defense is third best in the NFL in expected points allowed on run plays, which, if you don't know exactly what that stat means, essentially they find more success on a play-to-play basis against the run than 28 or 29 other teams in the NFL. The Jaguars are not bad in that stat. They're 15th, so they're almost right smack dab in the middle of the league. But that's 12 spots different than where the Titans are. So, yeah, they're okay up front. They're not awful, but there should be more opportunities for, like you said, whoever the running back is, McKinnon, Edwards-Helaire, Pacheco, for one of those guys to step up and make some big plays in this game in the running attack. All right, let's get to our big Chief picks for this week. The Chief player who we think is going to have the biggest, or at least one of the biggest impacts in a win or in the game in general. I'll let you go first on this one, Dan.
I don't have the guts to pick who I really want to pick here. I'm going to go with Juju Smith-Schuster. I think his role is expanding week by week. His comfort level, Patrick Mahomes' comfort level with him. And as teams focus on taking Travis Kelce out of the game, it gives Juju the opportunity to thrive in some of the same situations we've seen Travis Kelce thrive. Some of those quick dart throws over the middle to pick up 7, 8, 10 yards at a time. Juju can thrive on those because he's a big target with good hands, and I think he's going to have another big game. I expect him to get a lot of targets and maybe even approach 100 yards receiving again. The guy I don't have the guts to pick, but kind of want to. If McCole Hardman can't go, I think there's a big play or two for Kadarius Toney coming on Sunday. I really do. We saw him worked in for 9 snaps in his Chiefs debut. If he doubles that or more with Hardman out, I could see him, having a couple of really big plays, kind of in the mold that Hardman did against the 49ers 3 weeks ago. So I don't have the guts to pick Toney as my big Chief, but just remember that he's got a chance, I think, to make a little bit of an impact in this one if Hardman doesn't go.
I'm also sticking with the wide receiver theme. I wasn't sure where you were going with the no guts pick. I kind of like that one, though. I mean, it was clear there was an effort to at least get him a little bit acclimated to the offense.
First play of the game.
Yeah, exactly. And for a comparison, because a lot of people brought this up, because I remember when the trade was made, they brought Josh Gordon in middle of last season too, and he had like 5 targets all year. They did not ever make an effort to get Josh Gordon the ball like they made an effort to get Kadarius Toney involved in the offense this past week. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Clearly, this coaching staff has a reason to like Kadarius Toney, and I do think at some point that game will be coming, even if it's not this week. I'm sticking with wide receivers, by the way. I think this is another game where Marquez Valdes-Scantling could have a big game. Again, this secondary, man, it is just so flimsy in terms of talent. You're starting corners, Tyson Campbell and Chris Claybrooks. Rayshawn Jenkins is in the concussion protocol. Don't know if he's going to be able to go. Andre Sisco, their free safety. I mean, he's okay. He's a pretty young player, came out of Syracuse a year ago. I mean, he's nothing special. There's not nearly the kind of speed on that defense that I think should be able to slow down a Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Just keep running go routes, man. Just keep running go routes. Run straight. Eventually turn around after you get about 20 strides down the field. That ball might be coming your way. I mean, this should be a pretty simple setup for him in the vertical game. I don't think Jacksonville runs anything especially complex with their defensive backs. Send MVS deep. He could have another one of those 3 catches for 111 yards type of game in this one. And I think that would be a huge boon for this Chiefs offense to have that explosive play in their arsenal. And again, I think that will help lead them to early game, take the lead, put it away by halftime. Speaking of putting it away, let's get our picks for the game. Like I mentioned right at the very top, Chiefs are favored by 9.5 over at the FanDuel Sportsbook. 50.5 is the over-under for this one. And if for whatever reason you wanted to bet the Chiefs on the money line, you apparently don't really like value in your sports gambling, but they're minus 450 on the money line. So who you got and what covers do you have for this contest, Dan?
I do like the Chiefs to win this game. But they're 2-5 against the spread in their last 7.
Yeah, it hasn't been good.
So with that in mind, I could see maybe a late backdoor cover here. You talked about taking a big lead, and I do think that we could see something very similar to the Titans game where the Chiefs come out flying offensively and score on their first 2 drives and put a lead together. I don't think the Jaguars are good enough to come all the way back and really put a scare into the Chiefs. But do I think they could cover 9.5 points? I kind of do. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Chiefs to win outright, but I am going with the Jags to cover. I'm going to say 30-21 Chiefs, and I'm going over the total too.
Yeah, that would
Barely.
put it just a half a point over. I'm going to say the Chiefs end up covering in this one. I think Jacksonville could make a little bit of noise, but I think if any coaching staff in the league is prepared for Doug Peterson, it's probably Andy Reid's coaching staff. I feel like they're going to know some of the tricks that Peterson is going to try to mix in. I feel like sometimes familiarity really helps, and I think it especially helps when you've got the supremely talented team or the team with superior talent anyway. I'm going to go with the Chiefs as well. 34-20, I think, is the number. So that's going to push it over the total as well. Originally, and I think really at the beginning of this show about 15 minutes ago, I did not think I was going to go over with my total. I think Jacksonville will probably put up a few points. I think the Chiefs defense has had a few momentary lapses this season. And look, Lawrence has talent again, and his receivers are not great. They're 2s and 3s and 4s as opposed to 1s and 2s in Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, old Marvin Harrison, old Marvin Jones.
Who's that?
But
Never heard of him.
I just don't think they're going to be able to do it to compete for a full 60 minutes against this Chiefs offense or defense in that regard. So I'll take 34-20. And again, my favorite bet for this weekend, it's not one of the basic lines. Chiefs team total 30.5. That's the number I like the best because I think the Chiefs are going to be able to score. I think 5 scoring drives is absolutely within the cards in this game. 4 touchdowns and a field goal, 5 touchdowns, whatever it might end up being. I like the Chiefs team total over 30.5. Game totals 50.5. The Chiefs favored by 9.5 at home, clearly getting plenty of respect. You'll be able to hear this weekend's Chiefs Jaguars tilt, of course, on our radio home, 580 WIBW, the sports voice of Kansas. Dan and I will be back coming up on Monday, live on air and live on our Sports on 580 WIBW YouTube channel with 580 Sports Talk to recap everything from the football weekend. Chiefs versus Jaguars, KU versus Texas Tech, K-State with their massive game against Baylor, and so much more. It's coming up Monday from 3 until 6. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter. If by the time, Monday rolls around, Twitter still exists, you can find Dan at Dan Lucero Show. I'm at Brendan DZW. And of course, you can follow the entire Sports on 580 crew at Sports on 580. Dan, enjoy the long football weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.
You do the same, partner, and everybody else out there. Enjoy the football, and we will talk to you Monday.
For Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Brzezinski. We will talk to you Monday from 3 until 6 on